Games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and I am here to have fun. Hopefully, facilitate it for everyone. And I guess it is maybe the best thing that I went yesterday to playtest, and I will now play this, it's what I'm talking about. The afternoon and whether you should, how much you should expand the player counts of games by, but I'm not going to shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez, 10 a.m. is UK time, time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Leather. And today, the main topic is, the question I'm asking is, whether a specific player count is an accessibility issue. I'm going to be pondering a lovely day at the Now Play This playtest afternoon, where one of the points that was made was that, hey, maybe this game, which I'm thinking is really 10 or more players, but we did play it with 7, maybe that game, well, one of the players suggested this should be possible to play with a smaller player count. And I think it would be really interesting to have that conversation. And I wish that I could, yeah, maybe have them on. I would actually like to reach out because it is an interesting discussion. And it's true that if a game is only for 10 or more players, that's not the most accessible thing because even if I say, oh, you can play it with 7 or more players, like how often do you have that many players? But then how much of that experience are you taking away? If I were to say, okay, this game is possible for 4 players and you hold up 2 cards and then you've got this, is that a sufficiently different experience that maybe it should just be a game that you play at a big event? I mean, in the same way that, yes, there's an accessibility issue to going to a music festival. If you want to go to a music festival, then, there's a certain time of year and there's a certain, you know, yeah, there's a certain location, there's a certain cost. You've got to possibly go camping, you've got to be okay with a lot of things. And by the same token, you know, if you want to listen to music, if I want to listen to any of the performers who are playing at Glastonbury, I absolutely can. I can listen to their albums. I can listen to, you know, live recordings potentially in some cases, but it's not the same. And I think that's the key issue. Like, yes, you can provide something that's a variant, but how do you then say, yes, but that's not quite the same? Even despite our best efforts, there is no substitute for having 30, 40, maybe way more people mulling around trying to decide words. Because for sure, when I played it 7 players, it was a lesser experience. And I want to maybe talk about that a wee bit more. But first of all, let's talk about everything that I got up to, and let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So, highlights. Firstly, I'll talk about the stuff not at the playtest because I don't have any photos of that. Um, People are continuing to give opinions on which of my creatures they like. So, if you aren't following me on Twitter, please follow me on Twitter, and I will be asking you about all these creatures for cute, comical creatures, and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. So yes, please check out that website, follow along, but also check me out on Twitter and all the stuff. Um, I was I met a friend off. I met someone. Maybe it's a bit soon to call them a friend. Met after the playtest. I was hanging around. I was wanting to hang out in the park, so I sat on the bench, looked at my mobile phone for a bit. Someone walked by and said, "Oh, I love your reds," and then they wandered back and said, "Oh, I love your reds. I just wear a lot of black." So I wandered back, and then I came down to kind of have a wee bit of a chat, and then we got chatting about who they are and what they're up to, and they were struggling to find their way somewhere, so I walked them over, and then a lot of the things that they said, it sounded like they were on a self-destructive spiral, which is not completely alien to me. And I offered that if they buy me some non-alcoholic drink, some sort of mocktail, then I would sit with them for a chat. And yeah, we had a bit of a chat, and it was we traded numbers in the end. Like they offered to trade numbers, although the truth is, realistically, will we ever see each other again? Probably not, but you never know. And I hope that they are generally well, because it sounded like they were saying, "Oh yeah, today I just want to not deal with anything. I want to run away. I want to," and obviously that's not healthy. But I know the feeling myself. Like I do a bit of it, like running away by absorbing myself into something completely different. Hello, Jess. It is lovely to see you, and I hope that you are well. um, Talking about random encounters, someone that I met up a tree, but it was a bit more of a pleasant experience where I think we were. Was I in a better place? I might have. Hmm, I don't know. Maybe in the short term, probably not in the general state of things, but I always feel. But you were definitely in a better place than the person that I met yesterday. But yeah, that was my main thing. Also, I managed to make my prototype. I managed to cycle about 12 miles. I, um, yeah, that I'm going to try and build it up to three. So I playtesting, made my prototype, started continuing the conversation with this new person. Cycled a distance. I brushed my teeth yesterday, yep, and I had a walk outside. I had a walk outside this morning just to get myself started. What have been some of your recent highlights? Please do let me know. And now let's talk about a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Yeah, brilliant things. I mean, it's interesting that solitaire games, even though back in the day solitaire was such a big thing, and also the card game, but also Chinese checkers, or not Chinese checkers, but the puzzle, the one player thing. There's a lot of traditional old one player games, but then when we went towards modern board gaming, one player kind of fell by the wayside. But I think in the past couple of years, especially with the pandemic, one player gaming has had a bit of a resurgence. And yes, one player games are very accessible, that in that you can play them when you're on your own. When there's like no one around you and it's like, "Oh, I like this activity. I like the activity of generating words and having to do certain things." And but yeah, and that kind of ties into the main topic. Feel free to comment, ask questions, from like, follow. And let me get into the main thing, which is the playtest that I went to yesterday. So was there, met by Chloe on the right, who was helping to organize the thing, basically had read a bunch of the rules, and Nick, not pictured, the now play this main director, and Holly, the assistant director. Hannah, with grey hair, back to us, was there. Rob, who was part of as a body. Rob was part of the Now Play This design camp. I was part of the Now Play This design camp, which is why I was there. And Ezra, who's only got the two eyes on the left pictured. we all started off by playing, I want to say, Election Matter. Election Matter is a board game designed in Nigeria during the Now Play This design camp, where we were doing some stuff and they were doing some stuff, and we were hopefully learning from each other. And this is a game in which you are choosing to pick up or not from different small groups of cards around the board, and then you take a card and then you put it down. And I think there's an interesting sense of, oh, let me look at that person's face. Was it a good card? If it was a really good card, maybe there's another good card. If it was already a bad card, then I definitely don't want to go there. And trying to play the odds of when you go in, because people are going to grab the good cards first, and then eventually you'll be just left with the dregs. There is a theme, there's a setting of going around the country, campaigning, getting votes. Personally, I didn't feel like the theme came through very much. We discussed maybe in the more populous areas there could be more cards. Maybe there could be, rather than just roll some dice to decide your starting voting power, maybe the voting power is based on a political party, which could be another card. And then you learn about, oh, this is the popular political party in Nigeria, and this is doing really well. And I think but at the same time, I did I did enjoy playing it enough that if I was told, oh, the rules have been tweaked, then yes, I would play it again. It was, yeah, really interesting to try out. What we also got to try out was The Arms, a game of us passing cards around, trying to be the first to gather 5 cards that all match what we want. So we might be the citizen, we might be the legislator, we might be any one of 4 arms of the government. And once we've gathered 5 cards that are essentially in our suit that matter to us, then we say, the arm! And we win. This felt like an interesting game. I didn't feel a lot of empowerment. I felt a bit, I felt a lot of lack of control. And for me, I guess if a game is fast enough, if it's chaotic enough, if it's silly enough, if the core activity I'm enjoying enough, then absolutely I will keep playing it and potentially even buy it. But I think that for me, games are all about the agency. Games are, yes, about the surprise, but the surprise should be based on other people's decisions and other people doing surprising things, and me doing surprising things, and me maybe even surprising myself. And this game didn't have the potential for that, so I would love for there to be a little bit more agency and potential for, yeah. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the whole point is that in government you don't have agency. We played rock, paper, something at this point, so we'd spent the majority of the day. I think we'd gone from like 2:30 until 4:00. So we spent about, I guess that's only an hour and, is that an hour and a half? No, 1:30 until 4:00. 1:30 until 4:00. Yeah, so it's 2.5 hours. And so we spent 2.5 hours on, yeah, the Nigerian games, and then we spent half an hour on Chloe's and half an hour on mine. So Chloe designed rock, paper, something, and the idea is that you play rock, paper, scissors, and then whoever wins the third game changes one of the rules. And parts of the idea of rock, paper, scissors is like so Chloe has enumerated and listed all the directions for the game, and then we pick one of the rules, and we might say, okay, we are changing this rule. So rather than rock, paper, scissors being shown by hand gestures, they are shown by stories. And rock is a rocky story, scissors is a cutting remark, and paper is a joyful story. And then maybe the next, after we play another 3 games, and then someone changes the rule, and Chloe said, okay, now the rule is that You are allowed to change your story within 3 seconds if you think you know where the other person's story goes. And then we played another 3 times. Chloe changed the thing again to say, okay, we if you think it's going to be a tie, the first person to touch the shelf wins the tie. But if you touch the shelf and it's not a tie, then you automatically lose, which was kind of interesting. Also, it does mean that you've got like a 50-50 chance of being punished and a 50-50 chance of nothing happening if it's a tie. So it's not the most punitive thing. And whereas Nick and Rob, who are pictured, they said that only things that are thrown in mid-air count, and you need to say the word of something that's totally different. Here, James and Hannah played, I can't remember what their rules were, and then Lynn and Ezra played where you've got to turn your backs to each other and you're throwing different shapes. And so I think that this is a really nice game about creativity, and at the end, the new twist was that you look at some cards and you say, okay, which one of these aspects is your opponent? Are they an artist? Are they trying to express something? Are they a traditionalist? Are they trying to preserve the game? Are they a tyrant trying to win the game? A booster trying to make the other person win? Are they a clown trying to make it as joyful as possible? Or are they a anarchist trying to make the game as different as possible? And that's really interesting. And so I think that this is one of those games that it's absolutely about the people that you're playing with, and I would play this again in a heartbeat. Finally, we finished the game with wordy connections. And in wordy connections, everyone has one word. You're just saying your one word, and you're going around trying to find people who have this one word. And what I found with 7 people is that because the minimum length of a phrase, because they're trying to combine your words to make phrases, is 3 people, well then you're not normally going to get to 3-4 split. You might get to 3 people here, and then naturally, once you get 4 people, then the 5th person comes to be part of the group. With 10 people, I think it naturally splits into 2 groups. But with 7 people, it was generally coming into one group, which wasn't really the point of the game. Like, the point of the game is, oh, I don't like this bunch of people. Oh, I'm going to go into this bunch of people. And like here, I think we managed to get 1, maybe 2 sentences where it was all 7 of us. We all managed to make something together, and it was a massive boost and a feeling got a rush. Here's rock, paper, something, and here's the final poem that we came up with. You follow least. Octopus game unwraps all. Never scheme, always stand. United, not Boris. Never to stay. Conservatives are friends too. Who doing environment? Much play is always terrible for sleeps. Democracy, talk with any human power. Real hedgehogs' love is never, never worst. Run, lions are real. You fall at any. And each time you come out of the room, you place your things on the table, and then there was some really interesting feedback, which brings me to the main topic. Because, as I said, I felt like I wrote there, it worked okay for 7 players, but I feel like it works much better for 10, and like the 40 players, that was the kind of 20 players feels like the minimum to say this is a good game, to say this is the game as it was intended. Lots of players going around, everyone on their journey. You have your own personal quest to say, who am I going to combine my words with? This is what the game was meant to be. And that is the experience that, frankly, none of the players yesterday got. And one of the pieces of feedback was saying, could this game work for fewer players? Because this is not very accessible. I don't often have 7 players around my house. And I said, well, maybe this isn't a game for you. And that, like, not every game needs to be for everyone. And the reply was, well, I do quite enjoy the activity. And if there's a way that I could get part of that activity, then well, the real reply was, if I could get that, if I could be able to do that thing with fewer players, then that would be nice for me and I would enjoy doing that. And my thought is that, yeah, sure, you get to do something similar, but it's not that activity. Like, I could sit in a room with 10 people. I could sit in a field with 10 people and listen to, a musician. But we don't get the same experience as being in a field with 1,000 other people listening to them. And the song of Hallelujah, sung by Leonard Cohen, and then everyone singing it to the point where the main emotional impact isn't the music coming out of the speakers, but it's the music coming out of hundreds and hundreds of human mouths in an amazing orchestra, all generated by everyone knowing the song, everyone being in love with Leonard Cohen, and all singing together. There is no way to recreate that exact experience. It is a one-time thing. And I feel like this game is that kind of, yeah, like, if you play it 20 players, that's the experience. If you play it like 100 players, like that, I would love to see that. That kind of feels like the ideal experience. And going around, being on your quest, saying, oh, I don't like the way that least fits in here, I'm going to try it here, and I'm going to walk around until I find a sentence that I'm happy with. So once I found a sentence that I'm happy with, then we will give the thumbs up, and then we will walk back and put it on the table together. Whereas here, if I didn't like the sentence, it was either wait for someone else to come up with an alternate way, just kludge it anyway, or change my word. There is no alternative, okay, here's some other people that I'm going to combine sentences with. Hello, Timmy. It is lovely to see you. I hope you are having a good day generally. So I've got some follow-up questions for myself. So should a designer feel obliged to cater for all player counts? Well, if you can, then yeah, it's good. And I think that's maybe what would be good if I ever do publish this game and say, yeah, this is a game that I'm expecting 10 people to maybe get, and we'll see how it works out. And if it happens, then I guess if I were to kind of produce it in some capacity, I guess I would say, okay, there's a one-line instruction that, like, literally something that can fit on one side of a card with an illustration that says, hey, here's an idea of how to play for 1 player. Here's an idea of how to play for 2 to 4. Sure, here's a vague idea, but this is not the game. Now here is how to play for many players. This is the game. Here are the instructions. Here are the rules for the facilitator. Here is the game for you to learn the rules, for one person to moderate it and bring some joy to your convention. That is the game. It is a game for a convention. It's a game for a big party. Maybe you get to play it once a year when you've got a big gathering. But it is a game for 20 or more players. But then if I'm saying that is the game, then there are certain responsibilities with that. And there are certain responsibilities of saying, okay, I've got to playtest it enough. I've got to make sure that it's optimized for that player count. Now, with the lower player counts, I guess it's good for me to write it down, but if I can't think of a good way to have it for all the different player counts, then it shouldn't be incumbent upon me to necessarily say this is what you do. But at the same time, if I've got ideas, then I might say, okay, here are some ideas for how you might choose to play. And if you do play it, then let me know how you get on. But this is not the game. This is a way that you can play with the same cards. And yeah, that's the key thing. I want to talk about QE by Gavin Birnbaum. QE originally a game for exactly 4 players, and it is probably better with 4 than with 5 or 3. Yet, when it became published by a bigger publisher and it sold thousands of copies rather than just hundreds, they said we want the expansion. Gavin looked into the expansion. There are certain tweaks that are made, and 3 or 5 players might not be quite as good, but still, if I were to have 3 players all over, there is no other experience like QE. I mean, High Society is probably the closest, but that's very different. And so if we want to play something like QE, then yeah, as long as it's even 90% as good, that's still worth playing. Do you know what I mean? And so there is the sense of the author that you want players to have the best possible experience. There's this sense of preserving as much as you can, and then you say, well, I would rather you play it once a year and have the amazing 10 out of 10 experience than you get the option to play it straight away. And realistically, if you can play it 3 to 5 players, are you going to play it every weekend? No, of course not. You might still only play it once a year or whatever. And so I would rather you have the 4 player experience and have the 10 out of 10 experience. But then if it's a 4 player only, yeah, how do you make that work? It's you've got it might happen, it might not happen. Whereas it's not just about having the 4 players. It's also about everyone being in the mood for this particular game. And so, yeah, should we sacrifice when expanding the player count? I think that yes, as designers, we should be willing to sacrifice, but only a certain amount. Hey, sorry about the stream lagging. I think that was my computer. But basically, for those who weren't there, let me kind of finish up by recapping all the questions. And the internet seems to be really problematic for some reason right now.
Why is this
And
not working?
so, I mean, to wrap this up, should a designer feel obliged to cater for player counts? No, but it's good if you can. Or at least the most common player counts. Same answer. Is the variance better than nothing? Yes, it is. Is a bad variance better than nothing? If it's actually bad, then no, don't include it. But if it's good,
This is really weird. I
if
can
it's
hear the thing I said like a minute.
if it's like a 7 out of 10 experience for the but I think I've got problems with my computer at this point. I do apologise. Onto my phone.
Okay, I think this is, yeah, that's from a minute ago when I closed the computer. That's really, really weird. I guess the computer was, yeah, taking time to upload. Yeah, thanks for the bug reports to me. I genuinely appreciate it. But yeah, let me recap once more. Is it an accessibility issue? Yes, but some accessibility issues are okay. And I think that in the same way that Yogi, it's got an accessibility issue for people who are physically impaired. But if you're physically impaired, fundamentally, it's just not a game for you. If you're playing a game about music, a game about, let's say you're playing a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, and you're deaf, well, then frankly, that game is just not for you because the game is all about um, being able to hear things, being able to discern the emotions, and how certain noises translate to certain objects. So, yes, if you cannot hear like the noises of someone humming or someone playing with their belly when your eyes are closed, then it's not a game for you. If you hate maths, then any game about maths, yeah, sure, if you struggle with maths, then that's an accessibility issue, but it's just not a game for you. And by the same token, I think player counts can fall into the same category. Like, it's not if you hate it or maybe just struggle with it. If you struggle to get 20 people together and there is a game that requires 20 people, well, it's a shame. And hopefully there will be another game that occupies a similar experience, but that particular game is just not for you. I mean, there's so many mega games there, and I would love to have a mega game experience. And there's so many LARPs that involve like big crowds, like fields of people, and I would love to be part of that. And of course, I'm never going to be able to organize that many people to, well, maybe once or twice in my life, but how will I likely and organize that many people to play a thing? Well, I can't. But maybe someone else can. And so it becomes an event game. And so, yes, it is just you need to book, okay, there's this thing that's happening once or twice a year, and then, or even might be as much as once a month, I don't know, or once every, however often. And then that is the game in the same way. And so I think that, yes, it's an accessibility issue, but you need to decide, is this fundamental to the game? And I guess we can disagree about what the game was about, because for the other person, the game was about combining words and putting the words together to create this weird poetry. For me, the game was very much about moving around this space and navigating it and listening to other people, listening to, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? I need to hear and I need to see what people are doing and I need to, yeah, think about where my words will best fit in. And you just don't get that experience with like even 7 people. I didn't get that experience. And so, yeah, is it an accessibility issue? Yes, but maybe that's okay. Should a designer feel obliged to cater for all player counts? No, you're never obliged to do anything. I don't think any designer should be obliged to make anything. The only thing that a designer should be obliged to do is to be honest about what they have made. And you shouldn't even feel obliged to cater to the most popular player counts. No. If you want to make a game that's only playable by exactly 15 players, well then, yeah, you make that game. And if there's a reason why this game is only playable by exactly 15, I mean, that's a really hard number to get, because it's both big, so you can't just invite 4 people around your house, but it's also very specific. So then if you get 16, it's like, okay, well, one of you needs to sit out. But if there's a reason why you want to do that as a designer, then go ahead. And other people, of course, don't throw a strop if other people read this and they're like, well, maybe I'm going to house rule this to make it more about that. That's also fine for them to do. And yeah, it's fundamentally, you make the game you want to make. You're not obliged to make anything other than that. And other people are free to make the game they want to make. If they feel like, oh, you should have made a variant for this player count, or oh, you should have made a shorter variant that was half the length. Well, these things take time. Yeah, I've got advantage. Yes, I've got an advantage because I've spent years thinking about game design, but it doesn't mean that I'm just able to spend 5 minutes writing the rules and it's instantly brilliant. No, that's not how it works. And is a variant better than nothing? Is a bad variant better than nothing? Well, I think, if it's a completely different feel, but it still has if it's like 50% difference in feel, but it's still something of quality, it's still something that you might enjoy, then I would still include it. But if it's something like, okay, no one's going to enjoy it, and this is bad, this is like 4 out of 10, even for the target audience, then yeah, at that point, just don't include it and say it doesn't exist. And if people are, oh, but I really want to play it, say, well, I did design a variant, but it's actually bad. If they say, oh, please send it to me, say, okay, this is the variant. If you play it, let me know what you think, but please do not judge the game based on this one thing. And I think that's the key issue, that if people play the game variant, whether that variant means a lower player count or a higher player count, and then they say, oh, this was good, but it wasn't quite as good as I was hoping, well then, it feels like you are letting the game down because they haven't played the game to its full potential. I think that's fundamentally what I'm getting to. Let me recap. That is my recap and wrap up before we finish up. And before we close over, question of the day, here's a little question before we go on our way. How do you feel about big player counts games? Do you like games which have like 20, 30, 40 players involved? How often do you get to play such things? Do you have a special love for them? I have a special love for them. I feel like wandering around like 2 rooms and a boom, where I get to wander around, and I wouldn't call it a party game because it actually takes quite a bit of time to understand the rules, but you're wandering around, there's like maybe 20 people, and I think it's 10 players minimum, something like that, and then you're really listening to each one. You're sharing some amounts of information, but then you can share full amounts of information. You've got 2 teams, you're trying to work out who's actually on your own team, and then if one team's trying to find the president and separate the president and the bomber, one team is trying to get the bomber and the president in the same room at the end of the game. And there's also people who are in charge of the rooms, and people in charge of the rooms are elected by voting, and then it's about cross communication between these 2 rooms and lining up future plans. And yeah, lower player counts, it would be more like, and I would be interested to also think about it with the easier factions and build it up, and then you've got other roles like most werewolf style social deduction games where you've got extra things to kind of build it up, like the lovers want to be in the same room at the end, and yeah, little things like that. And oh, here's the doctor, and the president needs to get the medicine from the doctor at some point, and here's the technician, the bomber needs to meet the technician to make the bomb go. But yeah, do you like big player count games? I do. I love them, and I think that there's something that you can only get if it's a big player count game with an experience that I can only get by having that big player count, I absolutely adore it. Over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. What are you up to today? Today I am, in order of priority, doing my taxes. I am getting outside, going to a game day, and remaking one of my prototypes. And I might go out tonight if I've finished doing my taxes. If I haven't, I won't. But we'll see how we get on. I mean, it might be that I go to the game day and then that's like enough excitement and enough going out for me. But what are you up to? Let me know. Whether there's something you're looking forward to, something you're excited to do, let me know. Please share. I promise that I care. If you want to check me out, I am, of course, Stuff by Bez in all the places. stuffbybez.bigcartel.com. I will definitely redo my shop in the next 2 weeks. stuffbybez.com/streams. Check out my future streams. Tomorrow I am with Luke and Laurie. Ree and Laurie. Don't know why I said Luke. I do apologise, Ree. Yeah, we need to decide what we're actually talking about. Then I've got Paul and check out that streams. And on the 22nd of July, it's my big epic 700th stream where I'm having some major guests. Some of them have been on before, like Jess Mederingham and Kathleen Mercury. Some of them are new to the show, like Dr. Tanya Pabuda, who's a researcher, Tanya Thompson, who's a game scout for Hasbro, and Nikki Valence, who's a game designer previously working for Fantasy Flight Games. I'm really excited about that. Share, spread the word, lots of love, and also I've got Josie Finch, who's not been thing. So thank you very much, everyone. Lots of love, and the only thing left for me to say is, of course, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song, Juju. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time. Whoops. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Jess. Bye-bye, Timmy. Bye-bye, everyone else.